What's up, everybody? In this video I'm going to build this cutting board. It's an end grain cutting board, except for the sides here. Wanted to show off that pretty curly maple. But anyways, we have curly maple, like I said. This is also curly maple. We've got some bubinga, some walnut, and some Brazilian ebony. I was kind of hoping it'd be a little darker, but that's how it came out. It's still pretty. And then we cut some handles in here, but I'm going to go through the build. So let's get to building. So in this video I'm switching it up a bit and narrating. This way I can add in some tips and just talk about what's happening in the build. So let me know what you think in the comments, whether you like this style with the commentary, or maybe you just want the video with the music in the background. But anyway, let's get into the build. So far I've just been milling and dimensioning the pieces I'm going to use, and this is a really important step. If you take the time to do it right, your whole project is going to go a lot smoother and your finished product is going to be a lot nicer. So here I'm using a bandsaw to cut some of the thinner strips that I'm going to use in the cutting board. And the reason I'm using the bandsaw is because the blade on a bandsaw is a lot thinner than the blade on a table saw. And because of that, it creates a lot less waste and I make better use of the material that I have. And the Brazilian ebony that I was using, I only had a small piece, so I wanted to make the most efficient use out of it as I could and get the number of strips that I needed, which I couldn't have done had I used my table saw. In doing the final glue up, it's really important that the pieces align just right in a design like this. So after I do my initial alignment, I'll gradually tighten the clamps down, because as you know, it's very frustrating as you tighten them down, your pieces tend to move. So I'll tighten it a little bit and then I'll check to make sure it's aligned right, tighten it a little more until it's to the point where I'm going to leave it and let it dry. And in this design, it was very important because I had a couple strips of maple and Brazilian ebony that had to align because I wanted them to look like one single strip all the way through the cutting board. And this alignment actually resulted in a little bit extra that had to be cut off on each side because the walnut pieces I used were a little thicker than I had planned for. But the end walnut pieces ended up being a different thickness than the middle pieces, and it looked good. Even better, I think, so happy mistake. Gotta love it when that happens. To cut the handles, I used a 5/8 inch cove bit and a tip here. Take a little bit at a time. Don't try to make the whole cut in one pass. Take a little bit, go back, make another pass until you get the depth that you want. This way you won't burn your material, or worst case scenario, break your bit. So on to sanding, the beginning of finishing. And in this project I use 4 different grits. Start at 120, then 180, then 240, then 320 to finish. And in between each grit, you'll see that I'm spraying the cutting board down. And what I'm doing is I'm spraying it with water and letting it dry, and doing what's called raising the grain. So when wood gets wet and then it dries, the fibers stand up. And if you don't do this, when your cutting board gets wet for the first time, you're going to get an unpleasant surprise, where the cutting board that you worked so hard to make nice and smooth is not so smooth anymore. You can get away with just raising the grain once between the last 2 grits of sanding, but I like to take the little bit extra time and raise the grain between each grit because I think it makes it that much smoother and it holds up a little bit better to being subjected to water so often. So finishing a cutting board is pretty simple. Basically, you're just going to douse it in food grade mineral oil and then polish it up with a mineral oil wax mixture. And you can do it like I am here by using a clean rag or finishing pad to spread the mineral oil over the cutting board. And you'll notice that the end grain soaks up a lot of mineral oil, so don't be shy with your mineral oil. Another way to do it is, especially if you do a lot of cutting boards, you can just fill a tub up with mineral oil and drop your cutting board in there and let it soak it up. But if you do it like I am here, you'll probably have to do 3 or 4 applications to sufficiently condition a new cutting board with your mineral oil, especially with the end grain. And the last coat is the mineral oil wax mixture, polished up with a buffer pad tacked on to my orbital sander there. If you like this video, please hit that like button, and if you want to see more, hit subscribe and that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and happy building!